What's up, guys? It's Brent and Vinnie with the Dog Owners Podcast, and this is episode 1. And in this episode, we're going to go over what we think is the most important thing that all dog owners should know.
What does your life look like as a dog owner? Brent and I are going to break down a very easy and digestible system for you to follow along with to ensure that your dog isn't just well-trained, but they're well-behaved. Oftentimes, we understand the training drills that we're supposed to do, but what about the other 23 hours and 45 minutes a day? Well, guess what? You're going to learn what that looks like today, so buckle up and let's get started.
All right, guys. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is routine and management systems. Now, routines ultimately are going to be how much exercise is the dog getting, how much rest is the dog getting, and then what are we doing as far as like enrichment and play for our dogs? Like how are we giving our dogs fulfillment throughout the day? Now, these are things that happen every single day, multiple times a day. So in this very first segment, me and Vinny are just kind of going to go over what we consider to be good exercise, rest, enrichment, play, things like that. Because whether you know it or not, guys, everything from how much your dog sleeps to how much energy they get to burn to like how often do you get their heart rate up past 120, like literally all of this stuff affects their psychology and their physiology. So let's go over a basic dog daily routine. There's 3 basic stages. Number 1, I got to make sure that my dog gets sufficient amount of rest. Right now, when we talk about rest, we're talking anywhere between 16 to 18 hours, which I know sounds like a lot of time for sleeping, but if you look at it, it's like 8 hours sleeping at nighttime. And then if my dog takes a nap like every hour and a half, then that's 16 to 18 hours right there, right? And here's the funny thing, guys. When it comes to sleep, anytime I tell my clients this, like your dog doesn't sleep enough, they go, what are you talking about? My dog takes 30 naps a day. And the funny part is when we kind of look at 30 years ago and modern day, back when dogs used to live outside, dogs actually slept a lot better, right? Like they would bark at the neighbor's dog for 30 minutes and then they'd, find a sunny spot or a shady spot and they'd fall asleep and they'd take naps. But what's so interesting is like over the last 30 years as dogs have kind of moved more indoors and go outside less, you'd think that they would fall asleep more because they're in a comfortable indoor environment. But what tends to happen is we start seeing that dogs actually suffer from getting woken up more, right? So like if we get up to go to the bathroom or we go and grab a drink of water, or like if I have a guest coming over, a delivery, like a dog who lives inside the house is disturbed more often than a dog who used to live outside, which is so interesting, right?
It is. And sorry for cutting you off here.
No, please.
It is. And one thing I think people forget about is they think their dog. One thing that we forget about is we think a dog laying down is sleeping, but a really good litmus test for this is just go to the bathroom and watch what happens.
Yeah.
Because what Brent's talking about is these dogs are in a state of waiting, but they are 100% awake and not truly sleeping because they're going to follow you to the bathroom or into the kitchen or upstairs or downstairs. And all of this has been amplified in the past 5 years since our daily routine has changed as well, because we're at home more with work from home and all the different changes that have happened since COVID. So they're never sleeping the amount that you actually think they're sleeping. They're just laying down, and there's a big difference. So take a big note of what that looks like inside your home.
Yeah, I think that's so funny because I remember the last 5 years I was having a hard time sleeping for a while, right? And I remember I was dating a girl who her sleep schedule was always off and she was never like feeling rested. So I remember reading books on sleep just to try and like figure out solutions and the importance of REM sleep and the importance of deep sleep and the importance of all these different stages of sleep for not only like cognitive restoration, but also like emotional regulation. And we've all been there. I think me and Vinny are workaholics. So it's really easy to like work yourself into, a frenzy. Like we get dopamine addictions. Like if we don't have something to do, we find something to do and we kind of become we're very driven, kind of like almost like working dogs, right? Yep. And we're very driven. And if it wasn't for our loved ones who were like, hey, have you had lunch? Hey, you should take a break. Hey, how about you don't do all that extra stuff because you're kind of amped up right now? when we're in those states of mind, it's easier for me, especially as a boss, right? Like I'm a little snappier with my staff, or I'm a little more easily frustrated and I have a shorter fuse, if you will. Can you relate to that?
Well, 100%. And one thing I want you to understand is we're going to teach your dog how to be well behaved and have an off switch, but I cannot guarantee to teach you to be well behaved and have an off switch, because what Brent just said to a T is my life. Like I live that life of like, but that's not healthy. I can recognize that, but it's definitely not healthy for your dog and it's not fair to your dog. And it's something that we can change. So why not?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we say all this to kind of just talk about the importance of sleep, guys. The average dog is under rested, and the average dog has poor emotional regulation and poor ability to focus simply because they're not resting as much as we think they're resting. So many times I'll do a puppy class. I'll have like 6 puppies, 7 puppies in one class, cute little puppies under 4 months. Half of those puppies are like grumpy and like they're growly and nervous. And people think that, is my dog just aggressive? Is this his temperament? Is this his personality? And I go, no, your dog's actually tired and overstimulated. And I was like, when was the last time they napped? He was like, I don't know, 5 hours ago. I was like, 5 hours ago? I was like, puppies should sleep every other hour, you know? And that's normal for them. But the only thing keeping them up is usually us. Or we think a dog has so much energy that we have to burn them out and drain this big battery that they have. And you know, the reality with sleep, it should happen in a pattern, right? There should be a pattern to sleep for dogs, especially young growing puppies. So anytime I put these puppies on like this cycle, we're kind of breaking down for you guys. Within 2 weeks of puppy class, the dogs come in playful and happy and social, and they go, no shit, my dog just needed more freaking rest. Right. And
Yeah.
there's actually a video I have on YouTube on the Canis page. It's called the Stress Reset, that in essence is an in-depth dive into this cycle that we're breaking down for you guys here as well. And this is the same stuff we do with rescue dogs too. So we don't just do it with puppies, we do it with rescue dogs. And this is the stuff that we would usually recommend for dogs who are adopted for the first couple weeks of their adoption.
Even beyond that, you're putting on, even beyond that, if you're putting a dog on some sort of behavior modification program that is super reactive, that is anxious, that doesn't know how to settle, that's 5 years old, you would still put them on this similar system because they don't know the right answer. And everywhere you see online is enrichment and exercise and enrichment. And why all of that is important and great. If you're not giving your dog time to settle down and you're so worried about how do I stimulate my dog more? It's like, well, you're actually doing too much, right? So oftentimes you have people on different ends of the spectrum where some people are literally doing so much with their dog, it's detrimental. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have dogs who are getting a 15-minute walk and they go, oh, that's plenty enough exercise for the day. And the dog is ripping the house apart. And we go, why? We have to find that balance. And through this schedule that Brent and I are going to lay out, you'll see what balance is right for your dog.
100%. Now, originally I said that there's like 3 stages. Originally there's 4 stages when we working with puppies and new rescue dogs. So I will break down all 4 stages. So after sleep, we all understand sleep. We're moving on now. After dogs wake up, what's the one thing that dogs have to do almost 100% of the time when they wake up, Vinny?
Pee.
They have to pee. They got to go potty, right? And so I don't care if you have a 10-week-old puppy or if you have a 10-year-old dog, they always got to pee after they wake up. Okay. So when we're dealing with potty training, again, you can skip this step if your dog's pretty well potty trained. But the key with a dog who needs potty training, a new rescue dog, a new puppy, I'm a big believer that dogs should learn toilets one at a time, right? It's been a misconception in dog ownership that good dog owners walk their dogs. And I totally agree that you should walk your dogs and do enrichment. We'll get to that later. But when the walk is turned into like an hour and a half walk because you're waiting for your dog to take a poop, when you only had 45 minutes, like that becomes inefficient to me. And so when we're teaching dogs potty training, I'm a big believer to teach a dog a toilet on my property, like whether you live in a house or an apartment. If you live in an apartment, like what's outside your building's door to the left or the right, what's the closest grass patch or dirt patch that you can teach your dog to go potty on? And if you live in a house, a place in the backyard or a place in the front yard, some place that's easily accessible, because the big things that we're trying to prep for, guys, and I know we have better weather here on the West Coast, but like think of horrible rainy days or snowy days or super hot days where you cannot, like in California, it gets really hot, like 110, 120 degrees, where you can't take your dog for a long walk to go take a dump, right? So I want you guys to think about, what is that one toilet that I can guarantee the dog's going to go 100% of the time, and focus on training that one single toilet, right?
Yes.
That's going to be the easiest thing. And you do that through like feeding your dogs, like giving them treats when they go there, praising them when they go there, eventually phasing treats out. But like, what are your thoughts on the toilet and the potty training stuff?
Yeah, and you don't want it to bleed into your walk. So I had a dog when I was younger. I had to walk to go to the bathroom, and it was a huge pain in the ass. And it wasn't realistic because it rains all the time in Pittsburgh. So those two things should not bleed together. I tell people, when you're taking your dog out to go to the bathroom, be prepared to pitch a tent. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to pitch a tent right here and camp out. This dog's going to potty, and then we're going into the house. And if I don't get my dog to go to the bathroom, for me, we're going back in. I'm not going to go down for a walk. I want to separate these two things until my dog learns, hey, as soon as we come outside and we hit this grass pad, I expect to pee right away. And because I've changed that, like with Crunch, my new puppy, Brent, it's almost, it's automatic. I put a leash on him or off leash. The second he crosses over the first patch of grass he gets to, he relieves himself. We go back into the house. There's not this expectation of I pee. Okay, let's run down the street. And it's like, okay, we were just going to the bathroom. Let's go back in. And it makes your life a hell of a lot easier if you pitch that tent.
100%. When we look at those people who are convinced that I have to walk my dog, right? Because I get the misconception. I get that people think they got to get the dog moving around to get the poop and the pee working out of them, right? And that's true to an extent, or some dogs, but like you can also, the location, the visual toilet cue becomes a good sign for the dog to go potty. And one thing I like to do is I like to give my dog freedom or opportunities after they go potty, right? So like if you drop a deuce or go pee in that spot where I'm teaching you, even if you have nothing in there, if you just squeeze a little pee out, now you're going to get food. Now you're going to get play. Now you're going to get exercise. Now you're going to get freedom. Now we're going to go on the walk, right? So I can actually teach my dog that they can solicit something from me. I will give them something if they do something first, right? And when we use those real life rewards in dog training or in like dog ownership, that's the best kind, because the dog sees that they're in control of something and like they can get their owner to do something for them if they just poop and pee in the right spot, right? So it's kind of reverse, like we're getting them to think they're training us when really we're training them.
I'm just going to say the same thing. From the dog's perspective, they think that they're training us, and from our perspective, we think that we're training them. So it's a beautiful thing.
So anything else on potty that we're missing, or should we move on?
No, I think that's it.
All right.
Pick up your shit.
All right. Yeah. And pick up your poop. Yeah. Your neighbors get mad at you. All right. The third part of the cycle is something called PET. It stands for play, exercise, and training. Now, I always like to break down for people that there are two versions of PET, play, exercise. There's passive and active, right? Active means there are versions of play, exercise, and training that involve you, the human, right? So if I'm going to play with my dog, that means I'm the one throwing the ball. I'm the one tugging the rope. I'm the one goofing off and wrestling with my dog. And passive forms of play would be like teaching your dog how to play by themselves, right? There are going to be times where we're working from home, or we got to leave, or we got to take care of the kids, where we don't always have the time to play 20 minutes with our dogs, but we can buy certain types of toys, give them certain types of space in the house where they can learn to self-entertain, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important for dog owners to know, because so many times, like in an ideal world, yes, you're the one playing with your dogs. Everyone listening, there is nothing more fun to a dog than playing with another living creature. You will always be primary. However, the way we live our lives, we can't always be there to play with our dogs.
And that little note, that little token that he's talking about, a dog learning how to play by themselves or chew a bone by themselves or hang out by themselves, is what goes beyond good training. So for me, it's one thing to be able to teach a dog sit and down and come and heel and all the things that we need to teach a dog. But if I have to micromanage my dog in order to be well behaved, I'm shooting myself in the foot. So, what I recommend for people that have a young dog or a dog who doesn't know how to do this on their own is first satisfy the dog, take him
Hmm.
out, do some sort of exercise or play ball with him, or you can do some obedience training. And then when you're done, give your dog a toy, give your dog a bone, allow your dog to chew that bone. And for people that have a really anxious dog, smaller spaces. Like
Hmm.
you can use a pen, you can use baby gates to keep the dog confined so he can't go do all that much else. The only thing that's exciting is that bone on the ground.
All
But it's
right.
vital that he's not chewing it because you're holding it. He's not chewing it because you're talking to him like he's a child and he needs his constant support. During this moment, when we are allowing our dog to self soothe, I'm invisible. I'm not helping you. I'm not giving you anything. You're just figuring life out on your own. And that's how you can teach a dog one way to turn off is by saying, hey, this is your time to be a dog. My only, like, we'll have some rules here, right? Like,
Okay.
you're still going to have rules inside of this window where you can't jump on the counter, right? Like, you can't be an asshole out the window. But other than that, I'm not going to give my dog that much direction, which is why it's really helpful if you satisfy that anxious mind first. If you do something with him to get rid of a little bit of that piss and vinegar, and then say, "Hey, here you go, buddy. Take your time, do your own thing."
Yeah, 100%. And going into like passive forms of this stuff, guys, as he mentioned, if I have a dog who's really anxious, or for me, even if I have a dog who's like super ADD, right, a dog who's constantly doom scrolling the environment looking for something to do, the easiest way to teach dogs to do something is by controlling their access to other things. Right. So like if I don't want my dog to chew on my shoes and chew on, the couch cushion but I want them to chew on their bone, then I'm not going to give them access to the shoe or the couch cushion. Right. So baby gates in your kitchen, puppy pens, baby gates in the hallway. For some dogs, like if you guys have a nice, safe, protected yard, like get big toys that they can play with outside, right? Like teach the dog like sometimes throughout the day, you're going to play by yourself, but it's outside. And sometimes that play could be like, hunting for squirrels or barking at the neighbor's dog or like, I had a Great Pyrenees. I mean, I still have him. He's still here. But there was a time where my Great Pyrenees kept digging in my garden. So instead of yelling at him all the time, I knew he was bored because he's like a Great Pyrenees who lived on like a really small property. And I made him a sandbox and I filled it with a bunch of sand. And grandpa would just dig, 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 dig in that sand. And that was him playing by himself. He would just dig and dig holes and then I'd bury it again. He'd just dig, dig, dig. But it was so funny. When I created the sandbox for him, he stopped digging everywhere else, which is pretty cool. Right.
Yeah, it is. And that sandbox could be a metaphor for you and your dog is what does my dog really enjoy doing? And how do I create that for my dog? Like that to me, Brent, what you just explained is something that I don't think many people would think about. It's something that I would never think about, which is why I love doing this with you because your lens is beautiful. But you have to provide that metaphorical sandbox for your dog so they can do something they enjoy without mom or dad holding their hand the entire time. But please, mom, I don't want that
Yeah.
for my dog. That's not the lifestyle that I choose to live.
Yeah, 100%. So in the play exercise train model, always keep in mind that there are passive and active forms. Passive again means ways that you teach the dog to do it by themselves, and active means that things you have to do with the dog because your responsibility as a dog owner should never be neglected. Okay.
Yes.
And then the active forms of play is really simple, right? It's the fetch, it's the tug, it's the wrestling, it's the stuff that you do with your dog. Now, when we look at exercise it has both passive and active forms, right? Active exercise would be like taking your dog for a walk, taking your dog for a jog, taking your dog for a hike. Always remember, guys, walking is not that cardiovascular, right?
It's it's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the constant like you just need to walk your dog more is not cutting the mustard for a dog who was bred for so much more. I could not agree.
100%. And so when we're thinking about it, it's so interesting. The difference between like steady state cardio and like level 2 cardio, right? And when you study it in humans, steady state cardio is like anything 120 beats per minute, right? On your heart. Okay. Now, I don't know. Do dogs have Fitbits? Do they? I mean, like, does the Does that Fi collar, is that like a Fitbit for
Actually read
dogs?
your heart rate? It may, dude.
I
It
don't know.
literally.
Yeah, I don't know. But here's the thing: is what at least what we learned in humans is anything under 120 is like steady state, right? Like as long as it's steady for extended periods of time. So like that could be a brisk walk. It could be a little power walk, right? And you can get your heart rate there. Between 120 to 140, I think they call it zone 2 or zone 3 cardio. And that's where like the fat burning and like you get all these crazy endorphins after and like you get into there, right? And so with dogs, you know, when they get to that state, that's like when they're fetching, that's when they're tugging, and that's when they're fighting, and that's when they're doing some types of exercise where they get to go fast, right? And so if you guys have the type of yard where your dog can go fast, or the type of property, like Vinny's property is beautiful. His dogs run around. His dogs are totally in you know, phase 2 cardio or whatever you call it, zone 2 cardio, right? But that's going to be really important for their mental health, because all of the stuff we hear about exercise, the endorphins and the serotonin release and all that stuff happens only when we kind of push ourselves just a little bit. And so when we look at exercise, the basic slow walk isn't always cutting it. So other alternatives could be like, one thing we do at our facility a lot is we treadmill train our dogs. So like we have a whole daycare where we have like 10 treadmills and a play yard where the dogs do about 30 minutes on a treadmill just to kind of get some good steady cardio in there. And then we let them go play with their friends, right? And there's a lot of dog owners who live in apartments or maybe work from home, and they might not have the time to fit the walk the dog needs in the schedule. So supplementing with like a treadmill could be really helpful.
Yeah. And you know, Brent, you train in a big city. When I go to New York City and train, everybody's apartments, this, you know, it's a studio apartment. So they're like, okay, I just have to walk my dog to get him exercise. But the benefit of being able to train your dog well on a lead is that I can go from a 4-foot to a 15-foot or a 30-foot leash. I could take my dog to the closest park to me and allow my dog to have the freedom to run out there. There is no substitute for running. Like this there is this dog training belief that, hey, you want to keep your dog in a tight heel and you want him to look at you all the time. You want this dog to go on a nice calm walk where he's always calm and you try. That's not realistic. Like you got to give the dog something to literally fuck up. Like he has to want to run, to dig, to bite, to fight, because that's what they want to do. And if you don't give that, he will still run and get frustrated and want to fight, but it'll be toward the dogs that he sees that are walking down the street, or to the neighbor that he sees. It'll be to something. So without getting your dog to that elevated heart rate zone 2 bullshit that Brent was talking about, if you never get him there, you're going to deal with a lot of other things that you don't want, because we did not breed dogs to live in an apartment. That doesn't mean you can't fulfill your dog living in an apartment, but it means you need to change your lifestyle in order to fulfill that dog. Or you get an English Mastiff, which requires no activity. Brent, you know, one of those things that tell you the amount of steps that a dog takes a day, the whole 9 yards. I have a client who has one on their English Mastiff. They did a 10-hour workday with their English Mastiff. He did 41 steps in 10 hours. That means he walked the water and walked to lay back down. So, you know, but if that was a Vizsla, or if that was a German Shepherd, or if that was a Labrador, those dogs would die if that's the only activity they got. So, and we're kind of going all over the map. And when I say we, I mean me, because I'm infamous for going on tangents. But you have to give your dog some sort of very vigorous activity. And you want to do that on a daily basis as much as you can.
Yeah, 100%. I love your tangents. So keep going on them. Keep them going.
Brother. Yeah.
All right.
You know, the other thing people don't talk about when you actively get a dog's heart rate up like that is them learning how to get their heart rate back down to 0 and what that does for the dog. We can have an entire episode on that later. We don't really have to get into that now.
Well, we'll touch base on it in the decompression section. We'll touch base on that a little bit. Cool. Yeah. So in that PET, right? So play, exercise, and train. So like training, here's the thing with training, guys. Technically, you can make the argument everything is training, right? We're training routines, we're training patterns. But when I talk about training, I talk about things I want the dog to do, like things that may be unnatural for the dog to
Skills.
do, right? Yeah, skills, right? Obedience is unnatural, but I need them. I need skills. Maybe teaching my dog to live in their crate. That might be unnatural for the natural dog, but I got to teach him that. Teaching my dog to go to place and relax and calm the fuck down, right? Like that's something I have to teach my dog because in essence, anything that I do to prepare my dog to live in a human world is training, right?
Yes.
So those training exercises or protocols can change based on where the dog is and their stage in development and like what city you live in and stuff like that. But when it comes to training, we've all heard this paradigm where, when your dog is thinking and your dog is solving problems and your dog is actively having to use different parts of their brain, we start seeing that it's very tiring to the mind. It's super tiring, right? There is a caveat to this, but typically the average dog training session is roughly about like 30 to 45 minutes long, right? And like anything longer than 30, 45 minutes, right? If you've trained a dog professionally or you've trained your own dog, you start seeing this cognitive decline. You start seeing like their focus gets less and less, their ability to regulate their emotions get less and less. And pretty much it kind of goes like you're creating linear progress, and then there's like this plateau. And then if you stay too long on that plateau, their cognition starts going downhill. And so whether it's puppies or even teenage dogs, there is a limit to how much problem solving their brains can do. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I mentioned there's this caveat. The caveat is this: when the dog is doing instinctual things, right? Like they found a squirrel, they saw a lizard, they see, that's where dogs get like false, I call it false energy, but it's like, that's anytime your dog sees prey, anytime your dog gets to do something dogs were bred to do. Like let's say your dog catches a rabbit, your dog just got boosted with like 30 more minutes of adrenaline and dopamine, and your dog's ready to do it again, right? So there's a lot of people who their dogs are dopamine addictors, like they're addicted to dopamine, and it seems like they got hours upon hours of energy because their brain's constantly doom scrolling the world, right? And just because the dog looks like they're very energetic doesn't mean that they actually have the cognitive abilities to be doing all this stuff. They're like a drunk. They're like a drunk, walking around, partying, doing coke all the time, and they're just like, that person's not in their right mind. You know what I mean? So sometimes if you see that dog is your dog, right? As a dog owner, just see what would happen if we started doing this very next stage, which is decompressing, right? But before we move on to decompressing, is there anything you want to say about the training side?
Not about the training side. One thing what Brent was also talking about is very visible at a traditional dog daycare. So you may have a dog at daycare who's awake for 6-7 hours and they come home and they're dead, right? But the issue is that dog missed a couple cycles of going to actually sleep because there was always something going on, as we talked about earlier. And then the worst part about that is you're actually building up the dog's ability to withstand activity for 6-7 hours. So they expect it on Saturday and Sunday when you don't take them to daycare. And the same can be true, not just for daycare, but as Brent was saying, if I go out and I play with certain dogs, there are certain dogs who will push it to the extreme 3, 4, 5 hours. But that's not healthy either. As much as it is important to get a dog to get amped up, you also have to teach this dog how to settle, which we're going to go over right now.
Cool. Yeah. So the fourth and final stage, it's not final as in it's done. It's just the last of the four because the cycle repeats itself a bunch of times. The last stage is called decompression, right? And in essence, what we're doing is we're teaching dogs how to self-soothe and learn and teach their nervous systems how to relax, right? And what's so funny is, I have nieces and nephews. I don't have any kids of my own. But
not yet.
Not yet.
You be one of you guys, one of the or girls. I don't know
what. You're dumb. Anyways, so if you think about like self-regulation as a child, our parents, hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of times, had to teach us to settle down and had to teach us to calm down. And one interesting thing that I always think about from being a kid is like, I remember like, when you're a little kid, you get picked up from school and like you put your seatbelt on And if your brain is exhausted, what happens in 5 minutes? Like you're asleep. And the only reason you fell asleep was because you were isolated to your chair.
Yep.
Right? Like if you still could stand up and activate yourself and like interact with people, you might have more of that energy. But it was as soon as you were forced to be stationary and put your seatbelt on or in your car seat if you're a toddler, if your brain is tired, you fucking shut off and you're just gone, right? You're sleeping and snoozing really well. Versus if your brain is on and you're like fully cognitive, like you can be there and be like, hey mom, tell me about your day. And you're telling them your parents about everything that happened in class that day. Right. And so, in order to decompress a tired mind or an overstimulated mind, they have to be stationary. They have to be in a very low level distracting place, and they can't have the ability to explore stuff and to go jump on people or, go see who's at the front door. They can't have access to do stuff like that. So when we decompress dogs or when we're patterning decompression at home, the best places to start is going to be in some type of form of isolation, right? So whether I have a baby gate in my kitchen, whether I have a puppy pen that I've conditioned my dog to, or just the traditional crate, I can stick my dog in their crate, right? So that's number one. Always make sure that you isolate your dog in some way, shape, or form. You limit the amount of distractions that they're able to interact with. That's number one, so that you give the brain a chance to relax. Number
Brent,
two, what's up?
Brent, can I add one thing on that real quick?
Yeah.
Brent keeps saying baby gate the dog into the kitchen. And I don't know if he knows that he's being a genius when he says this, but the reason that he's saying in the kitchen is because typically the kitchen doesn't have a view of the outside. So it's important that when you do baby gate or crate or X-pen your dog, you are trying to limit all access to everything. I don't want this dog looking for the next activity and becoming that iPad kid of like, oh, what's over here? So make sure you're actually baby gating an area that makes sense to achieve this goal.
Yeah, kitchens are great because there's tile. If the dog potties, so it's on
Yep.
tile. Kitchens are usually close to the back door where the dog has to go potty anyways, right? Typically. So yeah, kitchens are one of my favorite places. But if you guys don't have that type of layout, if you have an open floor plan, then maybe consider crates or puppy pens.
Yep.
But bottom line, control the distractions. Great point that you said. And then the second part of decompression is there's this thing in psychology. It's called sensory grounding, right? And so I'm going to give you the long-winded explanation so you guys truly understand what's happening here. Even as humans, when we feel like calming ourselves down, we always have some type of vice, right? Like sometimes people will come home from work and be like, I need a beer, right? And they start drinking a beer. Some of the times they come home, they get a cigarette. Sometimes they plop on the couch and they watch TV. Some
Yep.
people will sit on the couch and turn music on, right? They'll light incense or scented candles, right? But all of these things are an attempt to anchor to one of your five senses, right? So what are the five? It's the sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, right? So one of your five senses. And when we anchor to one of our five senses, in essence, what we're doing is we're trying to reconnect our brains to our body, right? And when we're doing that, now we're able to fully like just chill and relax. And right, that's why like every yoga class, they're like, feel your toes, feel your fingers, right? They're trying to get you to like connect your brain to your body again, that mind muscle connection, that mind body connection, right? And with dogs in a very stimulating environment, sometimes if they're super social, they're going to be like, Mom, it's Dad, it's my little brother, it's my little sister. Who's outside? Look, there's a squirrel outside. So sometimes what we have to do is we have to hijack the dog's brain with something very potent and very powerful. And the easiest thing for dogs is something stinky and something delicious, like a bone that filled with food, a bully stick, something that the dog can chew, lick, or suck on, right? And there's a reason I say chew, lick, or suck, because when, most dog toys don't come with instructions, right? So some people will go to the dog store and they will just buy every freaking toy that they think is cute on the aisle. But here's a real basic rule of thumb, guys. If I want my dog to self-entertain, I need a toy that moves, a toy that squeaks, and a toy that dispenses food. one of these three characteristics, if not all of these three characteristics. That's an activity for your dog because it's mimicking prey and your dog gets to hunt it and kill it. Okay. If I want my dog to decompress and calm down and pacify themselves, I need something that the dog sucks on, licks, or chews, right? So kind of like a baby sucking their thumb or sucking a pacifier, right? Most mammals learn to relax and calm down and have serotonin and oxytocin releases when they're feeding off of the mother. And this is where this instinct is so primitive. This is where it comes from, okay? So when we get a dog a tasty bone or a tasty Kong, something that they can lick, suck, or chew, this naturally pacifies the dog's brain, okay? And it needs to be delicious because I'm trying to hijack the dog's attention from everything else. Okay, so if you guys live in a really distracting environment or your dog's in a distracting, it needs to be freaking delicious. If you guys are in a pretty calm, quiet environment and your dog has pretty high food drive, you could put kibble in there and the dog will dig it, you know? But the point I'm trying to make is there's two factors to decompression. Isolate the dog and make sure that you hijack the dog's attention with something that they can lick, suck, or chew. What do you think?
I love it. I really do love it. Can I talk about the only thing that I do different or no?
Sure, yeah, please do.
I love it. I think I love what Brent just said. The only thing that I do differently with my personal dogs or with clients' dogs is I try my best to get away from the Kong filled with peanut butter or some version of high calorie intake during this period of time because it's something I don't want to go forever. So for me, like my go-to during this time is a split open elk antler, or some sort of a bone with a little flavor on it. So the dog wants to chew it, wants to lick it, but doesn't necessarily need to have the caloric intake because it's something I don't want to do 5 times a day.
100%.
It's personally with a Kong. I think I've used a Kong with my dogs at a maximum time 20 times in my life, 30 times in my life, because I do try to wean them off of that. But I couldn't agree with everything that you said more.
Yeah. And what your dog chews on, you know, some dogs have sensitive tummies and some dogs, sometimes in a training protocol, like at work, right? When we're training like 20, 30 dogs at a time, I will straight up stick half of their dinner in these decompression things, you know, and I will mash it up. So it's not something that they kick around and it falls out. I'll mash it up so that way they have to lick it and tongue it out. So yeah, so I think it's all dependent, but as long as we're isolating the dog and as long as the dog is captivated by the thing that they have in front of them, there will be a natural decompression of the brain. And then, you know, the cool part, when a dog decompresses, what do they do now, Vinny?
Go to sleep.
They go back to sleep, right? And so now we got our dogs back in the sleep cycle. Then once they wake up, they go potty. After they potty, you got, you know, 30 minutes to 45 minutes of play, exercise, or training. And then your dog goes back to decompression. And it's so funny because in the Dog Trainers podcast, we've worked with so many trainers around the world. And it's so funny because you see patterns, right? This person has this pattern. This person has this pattern. This person has this pattern. And J-Jack, a good friend and mentor of mine, is this is his window theory, in essence, put into a daily schedule, right?
Yes.
For dogs, right? And pretty much like we took information that a dog trainer was teaching other dog trainers and we tried to simplify it in a way to make it easily digestible for dog owners, which is kind of what this whole podcast is about, right?
Yeah. And it's easy to put into your everyday practice. So, hey, Vinny, I'm going to start work at 8 o'clock today. What should my day look like? Okay, well, you're going to be up at 6:45. You're going to potty this dog. We're going to do some version of activity with this dog, whether we go on a hike, we go on a walk, we do some version of play or training, and maybe I do some obedience. And then I'm going to give my dog some time to chew on something, hang out with something, be by himself. This is his self-soothing time without interaction from me. Then I put the dog into the crate at 9 or 8 o'clock. I work without the dog around. And this portion is so important that when you do put that dog in the crate, it's okay to get away from your dog, right? Obviously, it's different if you have an 8-week-old dog, but even then, I would recommend that we get away from our dog. We do what we have to do in order to provide for this dog for the next 3 hours until I'm ready at lunchtime to take him out. Now, I know that some of you are working, so your lunchtime break may be slightly abbreviated, and that's okay. I still want to follow a similar cycle where I take my dog out and I potty him. I do something with him to engage with this dog. I want to allow him some time to be by himself and to self-soothe before I put him back in at 12 o'clock when I have to go back to work, or 1 o'clock when I go back to work. And the beautiful thing about this is I can repeat this again in the evening. Where most humans tend to get themselves in trouble is they go, okay, I feel bad because I worked all day, right? I gave him these 2 cycles, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. So at 4 o'clock, I'm going to let this dog out of the crate and I'm going to keep him awake. And I'm going to try my best to keep him awake so he sleeps good throughout the night, which is so counterproductive to what you're trying to teach, because from 4 to 10, you actually have another time where you can go through this whole thing again, including isolating the dog for a nap. You go, I can't isolate him again. He's been in the crate. It's okay. It's okay. You can go through the cycle again, and it's great to give yourself, when you eat dinner, like, the best time to obviously put him away is when you eat dinner. So you can enjoy eating your dinner without your dog right up your ass.
Mhm.
Now, as you start to go through this cycle, not only are you not allowing your dog to learn bad habits, which is extremely important because your dog has no room to make mistakes. The only time that there really is time to make mistakes is when they're isolated in a room with nothing that they can do. They can't really make many mistakes when they're baby gated in a room chewing on an elk antler or a Kong filled with peanut butter, whatever it ends up being. But the other beautiful thing is you're starting to condition the dog on how to live. So
Mhm.
as they grow up and mature, so as I started this when Crunch was 8 weeks old, but
Mhm.
at a year old, you're starting to see the cycle play out without him having to be put away. He's making that conscious decision on his own to be like, you know what? I got played with. I chewed on something. I'm just going to go fall asleep, literally fall asleep. Not just sit next to my feet and wait for me to get up, but zonk out, snore loud on my bed, because I've gone through this cycle so many times that this is just the way that I am. And this is the way that I live. So remember that. That is the end goal, is that you don't have to micromanage as much as they start to get onto a system. But at the beginning, your dog is too stupid to make the right choices. And never forget that. And I don't mean any offense when I say that. They are too dumb to
Mhm.
figure out to take a nap on their own, just as a child is or a toddler is.
Mhm.
So you have to do that at the beginning.
Yeah.
And everyone goes, "Well, at what age do I expand this amount of time that I allow a dog to self-soothe? Or what age do I expand the time that my training sessions go? Or do I decrease the amount of time I put him in the crate?" You're not looking for an age, as you're looking for maturity for the dog to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So for somebody who has a 4-month-old dog, yeah, your training session may be 10 minutes, right? It doesn't have to be as long as it would be with a 2-year-old dog. Or your self-soothing time may only be 10 or 15 minutes that he's in that X pen area. But as they grow older, both of those windows will expand because they can.
Mhm.
And then the sleep time will diminish, not the sleeping time, but the actual time I'm forcing my dog to take a nap will
Mhm.
diminish. And as your dog grows up and as you go throughout the cycle, you now have a well-behaved dog, not just
Mhm.
a well-trained dog. You
Yeah.
have a dog who can make good choices in the home. You have a dog who doesn't have to have constant oversight. And that is my biggest thing that I want to get across to dog owners is, if you do this early on, right? And early on doesn't mean at 8 weeks old. Early on, we start today. And for the next 66 days, I'm listening to this neuroscience book on building habits. They said the average time to build a habit is 66. It's smarter than using them.
66 days.
Yeah, 66 days. I thought that was extreme. I was like, God damn, I did not expect anything like that. It took me 2 days to get addicted to nicotine. I guess apparently makes it 66 for everybody else. But as we go through this, we started today, and you don't stop it. You don't stop it on the weekends when you have more time with your dog. You keep it looking identical 7 days a week, because if you make such drastic changes on days where you have more time off, it makes it very difficult for the dog on that following Monday to be like, what the fuck? You've
Mhm.
changed everything on my life just like that at the snap of a hat. So keep your routines similar. Now, one last note. That doesn't mean that you have to set an alarm clock, that at 3 o'clock every day, I have to do this activity. It doesn't have to be at the same exact time of day,
Yeah.
but we do want to follow the same script that Brent has laid out.
Yeah.
Is we potty, we do some sort of play, exercise, or train. We allow our dog to decompress 2 items on his own and be by himself. We put him in the crate or allow him to sleep, and we repeat. And if
Mhm.
you continue to do that, you will have a dog who then doesn't need activity in order to self-soothe. Now I
100%.
can start switching these up. Now I have a dog who's a year and a half old, who can chew his bone without going for a long walk first, or who can just lay down without going for a hike first. And that is what's going to make a dog be well inside your home.
100%. And you were alluding to this fact that like as dogs kind of get more mature and like they kind of figure out the goal is patterns, guys. And what's so funny is like our behaviors had to be patterned from the time that we were born to the time we were like 18 years of age, right? And for so many different things. Like one is like I knew when my bedtime was, I knew when dinner time was, I knew when it was time to go and play outside, and I knew that the schedule changed on the weekends as a kid, you know what I mean? And so when we pattern stuff, what we're actually getting the dog's brain to do or body to do is kind of like synchronize with a schedule that we want, right? Like why is the kid usually get tired around 8:30? Is it because they're a kid, or is it because we've always put them to bed at 8:30? You know what I mean? The body starts adapting to whatever schedules we put them on, and that's the cool part about the puppies. Now, to piggyback off of what you said about like as they mature, there's going to be natural progressions where, let's say, for example, like in decompression, maybe I don't have to put my dog in the crate anymore. Maybe I've taught my dog what place is, or I've taught my dog that area on the floor in the living room is where I want you to relax now. And now maybe I give my dog their bone on their place. So eventually crate or confined area can be converted to like a placemat or a cot or just an area on the floor. And then little by little, what you start seeing is naturally after exercise, you come home, your dog naturally wants to decompress. They go find their bone. They go to that area you've conditioned them to go to, and now they're able to self-soothe on their own. And the whole objective of all of these patterns are that your dog may not know why he likes to do it or why he wants to do the thing. Like, why do I want to potty on this one spot? Why do I want to play these games at this time? Why do I want to chew on and like chill on the ottoman? Well, it's because that's what you've taught the dog to do. And as long as those things are all cool with your daily schedule and daily life, then now your dog knows how to live in your house without any conflict, right? And that's the key here. All right.
100%.
You know what? I think this is a great episode just by itself.
Dude, literally, this was an incredible episode, and it's super insightful. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you really do take this information, apply it to your life, apply it to your dog so that we can all learn together how to be the best dog owner for our dog.
And if you guys like this episode, make sure that you send a link to some of your friends who have dogs who you feel might benefit. Our ultimate goal is to help as many people as possible with this podcast. So if you guys like what you're seeing, and if you guys are watching this on Spotify or YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe and follow us, and you'll be alerted when we release a new video. Again, guys, my name is Brent, and that's Vinnie Somma, and this is the Dog Owners Podcast. We'll see you guys on the next one.